the headlines in what Standard Chartered is doing. But look, it's great to be back. I've been in Mumbai, Delhi, came in this afternoon, and India is shining. Business is doing very well. Standard Chartered is doing very well. I've come here to open our new center in Chennai. We are inaugurating the center day after tomorrow, which is our biggest GCC in India. So massively excited.
Well, kudos to you on that. So let's talk a little bit about this center that you're opening in Chennai, which is going to be your biggest GCC in India yet. But I also want to talk about this from the prism of where things started for Standard Chartered in India, going back to 2001 as far as the GCC story was concerned specifically, and where you are today and the evolution.
No, look, you're right, Shireen. We opened our first GCC in India, in Chennai, in 2001. And for those of you who were around at that point in time, it was called Scope. Scope International is where our origins come from. Chennai is, we've got now centers in other parts of India. We employ 22,000 people. We employ 28,000 people in Standard Chartered in India, 22,000 in our GCCs. And Chennai continues to be our biggest center. You're absolutely right. It started off with, servicing standard operations. We used to call it back office in those days.
There was no GCC concept then,
absolutely.
Right?
It was service centers, back office centers. I was speaking earlier on our table, and things have changed so much over the last 25 years. So it started off with centralizing operations. So, the first step in our journey was centralizing operations significantly, but then has been moving up the value chain. So, just to give you some examples, if I look at our center in Chennai, that manages all of our retail and investment banking products globally. That's done out of Chennai. I've got colleagues of our finance organization here. I remember when it started, the team did accounts payable. Now they are complex joint venture transactions, balance sheet optimization work, treasury services that are being done out of here. We've got our people services team here. Our global people services team has been rated among the top 12% teams in all of GCCs in India. And as our head of our GPS is here, and he told me today, Tanuj, apart from interviewing people, we do everything out of Chennai as far as managing our 86,000 workforce is concerned. So it's been transformational. I mean, if I look at the 25-year journey and across all parts of our operation, the real move up to capability centers and serving global needs in very complex products and services.
No, that's great to hear, and I think that is going to be a focus of the conversations that we will have. But what I want to talk to you now about, Tanuj, is where you see the next 25 years. We've gone from the service centers, the contact centers, to the low-cost arbitrage opportunities, to now really moving up the value chain, as you said, complex things being done out of GCCs here in India, not just for Standard Chartered, for a whole bunch of other companies as well. But what do you see as the next phase, the next wave?
I think the minister touched on this, and, he used the word agentic AI.
Yes.
These days, you cannot go in the first 5 minutes without talking AI and increasingly agentic AI. But look, the biggest advantage in India, and I can say this from a position of seeing our GCCs across the world. So we also have centers in China, in Philippines, in Poland. So, we've got centers all over. One of the biggest advantages in India is what the Prime Minister says, the demographic dividend, and the focus on education and skills, especially in areas of emerging tech. So last time I was here, I was in Bangalore. I attended a session with NASSCOM, and the amount of investment that's being done on skill building around these advanced technology areas. So digital skills, data skills, AI, generative AI, and I think that's the future. So I think, days of labor arbitrage are long gone.
Yes.
It's about how do you create these centers to become a source of competitive differentiation for the brand, and how do you leverage these centers to accelerate the delivery of your strategy? And I think that's the name of the game. So to me, it's going to be about leveraging technology very differently. Human AI collaboration is something I talk about quite a bit. And I think these centers will become the heart of that human-AI collaboration.
So let's dig a little deeper into this human-AI collaboration, because everybody is trying to understand what this world is going to be, you know, agentic AI and so on and so forth. What happens to the workforce? What happens to people? How much do you hire? Who do you hire? What kind of skills do you do? I mean, this is your passion project. You've got a whole book on it as well, Tanuj. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you see this collaboration moving forward? What are we prepared to do at this point in time?
No, I mean, you're right, Shireen. I had a book came out last year on how to pivot to become a much more skills-powered organization. And I think the principles are as relevant to economies, nation-states, governments. I think a lot of ministers spoke about is to pivot to becoming much more skills-based as a state. And the underlying premise of the book is that, you know, the way companies are structured today is a product of post-second industrial revolution, where a job was the currency of work, you know, so it was job descriptions, reporting lines, factories. With what's happening today, we are what people call the post-fourth industrial revolution. Skills become a currency of work. So no more is this traditional construct of job, you know, people not being defined by their job description, but people being defined by the collection of skills that they have and the skills they will acquire and work happening on that basis. What does that mean, right? Especially with the amount of disruption that's happening with AI, I fundamentally believe that there are going to be tasks which will be disrupted. And as a result, companies are going to have to take a very forensic view of their talent landscape. So what are the skills they have? What are the skills they need to buy? What are the skills they need to borrow? And that's a very different mindset to thinking about FTE in the old way, you know, so this idea of, and we are beginning to change the language in our own company, right? We've always said 10,000 people in the center. We are now talking about what are the kind of skills we have in this center? What are the skills we are going to grow in this center? What skills are going away? What is the kind of reskilling that we are going to do? So the idea is to pivot away from jobs being a currency of work and beginning to talk about skills. And then focusing at length on reskilling, upskilling our workforce at scale to be able to deal with the future of work.
So, you know, at Standard Chartered, have you done your forensic exercise of skills at this point in time? And, you know, what are you bracing yourself for in terms of upskilling, in terms of reskilling, in terms of skills that you believe are no longer relevant to the future? What do you do with those people then?
Yeah, you know, our journey started 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, we did a piece of work which basically said, what are the skills that are not going to be needed in this business? We started with jobs because that's the architecture, but pivoted to skills in 5 years from today, 8 years from today, 10 years from today. And that led to a very focused, what I call build-buy discussion with our board. And we found that for us, it was significantly cheaper. We put a dollar number to it, which is now very well published, to reskill and redeploy as opposed to hiring externally every time a job came up. And you know, the way our business was changing, we were talking about millions of dollars. So we embarked on a very, very big reskilling exercise in both technical skills. So, you know, we are teaching our colleagues to be digital data literate. Now it's about AI skills. We've launched our AI Learning Hub for all of our colleagues, but also human skills, because it became very clear to us that there was a shrinking half-life of technical skills with AI, right? You know, I smiled when the minister said, we are sending people, we are teaching our workforce German and other languages. And I was thinking to myself, with generative AI, you can actually code in your own language. You know, I've been in Silicon Valley and I've seen scientists speaking in Tamil and with Copilot and actually coding. So, you know, the technical skills are getting disrupted. It's going to be the human skills around resilience, adaptability. So we've been on a big reskilling journey, which has led to our internal deployment rates, even in our GCSEs, increasing significantly.
So, you know, when you look at India now, and from a GCC standpoint, from a talent standpoint, as you open this large center, another large center here in India, the importance of India for the bank outside of banking has disproportionately increased, hasn't it?
You know, I always, you know, when I talk to our customers overseas, and we talk about India, and I say, look, the power of, I call it the soft power of India in the ecosystem of Standard Chartered. I mean, you know, even the hard power is India is our third most profitable country in the world. It's a strategically very important business. I don't know how many people in the audience know the first ever branch of Standard Chartered ever, 170 years ago, was in Calcutta. You know it, Shireen. So, you know, India is, from a business perspective, incredibly important. But to me, the way we are using the GCCs to leverage the acceleration of our strategy, and again, I was talking to the teams this afternoon, digital assets is a big strategic imperative for us. A lot of the technical work for digital assets is happening in our GCCs in Bangalore and Chennai. Private bank, which is one of our, affluent is one of our 2 strategic pillars. A lot of the risk modeling work for our private banking, advanced private banking clients happens out of GCCs. So you are actually looking at acceleration of our strategy. We are across.
You're spotting outside of digital assets and what we've seen emerge there.
I mean, look, we are very bullish as a bank on digital assets broadly. And, the moment you say digital assets, people very quickly get to crypto. And I don't want to...
Which is why I didn't say crypto.
Agreed. Shirin, you're an experienced interviewer, and you spend a lot of time with banks and bankers. We are very bullish on digital assets. We feel technology in this space is moving very fast. We feel banking competitors are getting disrupted very quickly. We are very respectful of regulation, of course. We wouldn't be around for 170 years if we were not. But we are very strategically thinking of partnerships in this space so that we can meet the needs of our clients, both our corporate clients and our private high net worth clients. That's sort of one thing which we are very bullish on. We continue to be very excited about the sustainability agenda. We think the way the markets we call home, the level of transition that's happening in these economies and the role that we can play there is significant. So that's the other piece that we are. And the third thing in financial services for me, which is becoming increasingly spoken about, is private credit. And, private credit and what that means, we've done a very interesting partnership in that space as well with Apollo, and I think that's going to become a big trend. Not just for sort of your corporates or commercial, but actually for high net worth individual clients as well. They want to play in that space, and I think that is for us the third really exciting big opportunity.
What's also exciting in India is, of course, the fintech story, which in the last 10 years has seen a significant inflection point. In fact, we've got a congregation of fintechs in Mumbai currently to talk about what the road ahead looks like. In your context of build, borrow, buy, where does the India fintech story stack up?
Well, I mean, look, I have always been a massive believer in partnerships. I think the days of businesses wanting to do everything themselves are long gone. And I've always said at StanChart, we are an ecosystem. We are an ecosystem of bringing expertise together, right? My title is Strategy and Talent. People just assume that talent means people. And I keep saying talent means the capabilities that help us deliver on our strategy. So, while I oversee our HR agenda, I also see our entire supply chain management organization, because we are thinking about strategic partnerships to augment sort of capability. And I think the fintech play, especially with regards to digital assets, the 3 things is massive. I mean, some of the fintechs in that space and the opportunity for investments is massive. So for me, India, the speed of innovation is significant. I always say, people say to me, why is India important? And I say, I always start and end with our strategy. We are a cross-border bank that provides differentiated services to our corporate clients, and we are as well as to our private high net worth individual. That's what we are. We are a cross-border affluent bank. And if you look at India, India is at the forefront of both of these trends. Economy growing at 7%, incoming if FDI high double digit. It's a very attractive investment destination for our corporate clients. If you look at our affluent proposition, the fastest growing number of millionaires anywhere in the world today. And it's a hugely attractive story from an affluent perspective. And finally, if you look at skills, I mentioned this previously, demographic dividend, under 35 years of age, the public sector, private sector partnerships that are happening in skill building. So both in terms of the 2 aspects of our strategy, underpinned by focus on skills, India is hugely important for us.
Tanuj, I want to understand from your lens, since you manage strategy as well as talent, and what we're seeing today, specifically in the context of AI, is this big talent war out there, specifically in Silicon Valley at this point in time. I mean, jaw-dropping numbers being thrown at people to draw in talent. What's the specific challenge that you believe banks like yours, companies in general, who are not tech, traditionally seen as tech, are going to face, but as you try and draw in the kind of talent that you just talked about?
I mean, the first thing I will say, it's very controversial for the technologists in this room, but I think adoption of AI at scale is not a tech talent. It's not a tech challenge. It's actually a skills, leadership, and a culture challenge, right? So, don't get me wrong, technology is very important, but without having the skills to be able to adopt technology at scale, and the culture and leadership, you will make limited progress, right? I mean, the one thing is the rebranding of banks to become tech magnets for tech talent has been going on for a long time, right? We employ more technologists than mid-sized tech companies. So, and that's something that we have focused a lot on. So the kind of institutes we go to, the way we brand our employment proposition, our benefits. I mean, we took a very progressive stand as a bank on our flexible working policies because we realized that the best talent wants that level of flexibility, right? Not just where they work, but how they work, why they work. And so in terms of our proposition, we've been evolving it to be attractive to tech talent for a very long time. The piece I will say about AI is I don't believe businesses can buy their way into the kind of talent that is needed with the pace of change that's happening. There is just not enough talent to go by. So, and don't get me wrong, you do need specialist talent and you need to buy them. But I think companies are going to have to really think about how do they build skills and talent from within. And how do they get the right model where you're augmenting the deep specialist skills with the many other things that are needed, risk management, ethics, you're looking at product development, but actually building those skills from within. And the borrow piece is looking at strategic partnerships from vendors, from your customers. There are many partners in the room today. So I think it's going to be those days of, I've got the money, I'm just going to throw it and get the best talent. Yeah, you hear eye-watering numbers coming out of Silicon Valley, but that's not the reality of most businesses. I think it's a much more nuanced approach in terms of what you build internally and where do you make those big strategic investments.
So Tanuj, I asked the minister, let me ask you as well, what's on the to-do list for you specifically, in terms of what you've been able to do so far, but more importantly, in light of the many opportunities, but also challenges that you foresee, what's the priorities that you're going to be focused on? And is there another book coming?
So the first priority is to do a grand opening of our Chennai center. It's been 7 years in the making. It's a real labor of love, and we are hugely excited. And I want to spend time with the team, and it's been a big move. We were at Haddocks Road for those of you in Chennai. It was a very emotional venue for us as Standard Chartered. So that's the real major priority. But I think the big piece for us is our CEO and our management team and our board talk about this very often. In the time of deep volatility is the biggest opportunity for a business like ours. We are an advisory business. We stand by our clients, both corporate, institutional, as well as individual clients, when they are going through uncertainty and change. And a huge amount of work that me and my organization are doing is how do we pivot to being front of mind for our clients in the advisory support that we are doing, the way we are talking about our proposition, the way we are telling the story, the way we are engaging with clients, events like this, I think is really important because when there is so much of volatility and change in the world, bankers, a bit like your doctors and your therapists, become people you come to for advice. And what do we need to do to capitalize this moment in terms of being the go-to bank for our customers is really top of mind and huge amount of focus. With regards to a book, there's definitely a book that's going to happen, but not anytime soon. It's a lot of hard work.
No, that it most certainly is. But Tanuj, thank you so much for a fabulous conversation. But we wish you the very best of luck with this new center and look forward to seeing much more of you here in India. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Thank you very, very much for joining us here today.
What a wonderful conversation that was. So thank you once again, Shireen and Tanuj, for those valuable insights and engaging discussion on skilling for tomorrow. We now turn our attention back to a sector that is the heart and the backbone of India's growth story, the global capability centers. I think we can all agree the GCCs, and you guys spoke about it, it's no longer a call center or a back office. Today, they're strategic hubs. They're innovation centers that are driving cloud strategy, AI strategy, product strategy. And, you know, these are some numbers. NASSCOM is estimating the GCCs will have a value of $100 billion by 2030. $100 billion by 2030. Already, India has more than 2,000 GCCs, and the mandate is only widening from delivery to design, from support to strategy. And the big question now is, can GCCs truly become the invisible headquarters for global enterprises? Or is there a risk of them being stretched too thin? So to take this discussion forward, I think we've got the perfect guest joining in. Let me welcome Mr. Brajendra Navneet, the Principal Secretary, Information Technology and Digital Services Department from the Government of Tamil Nadu, Ms. Selaja Josula, Global Head, GCC, Service Line, Cognizant, Shreyasa George, Managing Director, Partner, Bengaluru, BCG, and Mr. Rohan Lobo, Partner, GCC Industry Leader, Deloitte South Asia. All these people are not perfect guests to take this, and let me just have the privilege of asking a few questions to them on global capability centers. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Mr. Brajesh, let me start with you. The Minister, Raja just spoke about how Tamil Nadu, Chennai was the OG GCC, and now you are playing catch-up. NASSCOM is projecting $100 billion in terms of a value the GCCs can contribute by 2030. I want you to reflect on that, and what role or what value will Tamil Nadu command of that?
First of all, I would like to convey my thanks for having me here among the distinguished panelists and August gathering. Tamil Nadu is working on what I can say end-to-end model, where we are in true sense, we are democratizing innovation. When I say we are democratizing innovation, it means that we are not only incubating startups and providing them necessary infrastructure in Chennai, but we are promising that any young innovator who is aspiring to be an innovator would be having the infrastructure, let us say, within 1 to 2 hours of drive from his home or her home, and reach there and get the same quality of infrastructure which he or she can aspire to have it anywhere. Second point, what we are doing is end-to-end means that it is not only graduating them from TRL 0 or 1 to TRL 4 or 5, but we are doing hand-holding at TRL 1 level. Then we are moving them to the design system. We are tying up with best of the design institutes so that the concepts come as a design. Then we are getting into the prototype manufacturing. Then we are tying it up with the best of the lawyers for filing of for commercialization, which is ultimately revenue generation from those innovations, so that they are able to have that technology transfer with the support of a legal backing system. So to start with, I think these are the basic things which we are building upon through our institutes like ICT Academy, ITNT, and other institutes within electronics and information technology department. Thank you.
But if I may just get some numbers about GCC, if you would have them, what percentage of GCCs today in terms of revenue, number, or even headcount comes from Tamil Nadu? And, you know, since we're asking everyone the to-do list by 2030, where would you like that number to be?
Presently, if you look at different publications, because unfortunately there is no data capturing in that sense, but when you refer to publications, it puts that number anything between 15 to 20% for the India number. But still, I would suggest let us not believe that number. Let us look at the trend, because that will give us more focused attention that whether we are going up or we are stagnating or going down. So certainly, in the whole scheme of things, even this $100 billion I will say that it is an underpitch, because it is not capturing everything. We are saying that 64, 65 billion is coming from Yeah, and then we are saying that by 2030 it will be 100 million. I can tell you whatever has happened in last 6 months, this $100 billion can easily become $200 billion by 2030.
Okay, so NASSCOM's projection is perhaps very conservative. It may be a number as high as $200 billion by 2030. Okay.
We have to put these numbers in context. When these numbers were projected, the recent developments of 4-5 months in the international arena and geopolitical, it was not considered at that point of time. So the push will be on this model, which I think will take that 100 to even $200 billion. Okay.
Sailaja, you want to come in? You know, the trend, since we're talking about it, the trend earlier was about cost saving, back offices, call centers. Now it's all about innovation, becoming strategic hubs to global enterprises. What has brought us here, and what will take us to say $200 billion by 2030?
No, absolutely. I think Tanuj touched quite a bit of that, right? The entire value chain that we have seen in probably Standard Chartered. I think we have, I think the trend that we are seeing, it's no more about scale. Previously, it used to be about scale. The shift is now towards value. And value for the enterprise, value towards driving a sustainable environment, value towards creating niche or IP work. I think that is where we are seeing a massive shift in the GCCs. I mean, we all know, right? We produce about, as a country, 1.5 million engineers in a year. And that means that's the kind of talent that globally everybody wants to leverage. How can we get this talent to start to work on cutting-edge technology? I know we all, there's no conversation today without agentic AI, but how can we actually start to get this talent to start giving those solutions which are futuristic, which will help towards the business models of tomorrow, not the current business models. So I actually have many conversations with clients where they say, I want this GCC to be the tip of the spear for driving innovation, for enterprise-wide transformation. No more are they looking at it as cost arbitrage or labor arbitrage. I think those conversations have completely gone away. And they're definitely looking at how can you transform my business. So that's a big shift.
Would either of you have any number of, say today, what percentage of the work done by GCCs in India is high-end, the deep tech, the niche services, high value? Do we have a number?
So I think about 47% of GCCs are ER&D centers. Okay. About 60, 70, 80% of GCCs have high-end work that happens. But I want to correct a couple of numbers, right? And I want to kind of touch upon the 200 billion that he's talking about. The Confederation of Indian Industry has come out with a publication that says that the 1,800 or 1,900 GCCs now will become 5,000. Okay. And they believe that about 150 to 200 billion is going to be the contribution directly. There's going to be further indirect contribution of a similar value, and then an induced economic output coming from that same value. And the numbers are not crazy, right? If you look at the Forbes or the Forbes 2000 or the Fortune 500 list of companies, 70% of them don't have a GCC yet in India. If you look at the mid-market companies, there are 215,000 mid-market companies in the world anywhere, 114,000 of them from countries like US, Germany, Japan, which are subject to outsourcing. Just the mid-market is basically $500 million to $1 billion revenue. Even if 2% of them come, that's 2,000 additional. So I think the growth rates considered are very conservative. Of these 2,800 GCCs, what is expected, we believe that it's going to be approximately 5,000. And almost all of them are doing advanced tech work. Almost all of them, but 47% of GCCs are dedicated ER&D centers where obviously the advanced work happens.
Maybe just to add to that, and we always say the positive side, and it's great because we are in that room and we have to talk about the talent and the growth. But in reality, bringing the advanced capabilities along with doing transformation we are still far away, right? We spoke to about 150 odd GCC leaders in the market last year. And if you truly look at, do they have leadership actually in these hubs? and they've moved beyond execution to doing innovation. The conversations are very live and everyone's speaking about it. But if you actually see all of it coming together, there's less than 8% of the market doing it. Like if you force all of us together and say out of this 2,000, name me like 500 companies which are truly out there at the tip of the sphere, as you said, it's going to be very challenging. You know, we will get to count till about 50, we'll get to count till about 80, and the number starts dropping, right? Bringing together the right leadership in the market, along with the right capability and getting the agenda and the empowerment to drive innovation. Some have gotten there, many are in the process of getting there. But I completely agree. I mean, ER&D is where we are seeing the highest growth, 18% on the ER&D side in the last few years.
So you're saying only 8% of the GCCs today are driving, you know, innovation and real differentiation. That's what your study throws out.
Yeah, I think if you think about it as maturity of these centers, and I think Tanuj called out, Standard Chartered was here in 2001. We've seen this evolution, you know, over 3 decades now. The last 5 years has been an incredible growth story. But if we look at the overall market, and there's 1,800 GCCs in the market, and I'm sure that count changes because today in India there's 2 opening a week. That's the metric, right?
True.
And hopefully Chennai is getting a lot of it, and Hyderabad and Bangalore and so on. But only about 8% brings together many of these capabilities together to say that we are truly mature. And it could be some of these centers opened last year, and it could be some which have opened 2 decades ago. It's not a time-based journey anymore because a lot of tech's enabling us to leapfrog as well.
Mr. Navneet, so, you know, that is a bit of a reality check about the state of play right now, but there is no denying the opportunity. 1,800, 1,900 GCCs, the potential to bring in 5,000 GCCs over the next couple of years. What, according to you, needs to be done? And not just from a Chennai point of view or a Bengaluru. This is not about one state versus another. It's about India as a whole. If India has to capitalize on it and keep this juggernaut rolling, what, according to you, needs to be done?
We have to slightly look back on the trend side. First, we should understand that the trend line is not uniform over the last 30 years for this kind of institutions. We have to divide the era between, if I may say, pre-COVID and post-COVID. That whatever is happening or the offtake is happening in this sector is very much driven by the COVID crisis, where industry and the ecosystem realized that the famous GCC, when you talk about that 19th floor, that famous 19th floor story, that you can have a 19th floor in another geography and still you can deliver. India had shown the way that how during COVID period, all the financial institutions of the world and all the healthcare institutions of the world had delivered to their respective clients when India organized those back office services. So coming back to your question that what is to be done, I think 3 things are needed on that from the government side as well as business side. One is of ease of doing business, that can we look at our regulations and make it more friendly for this particular setup to get going quickly. The second one is, can we start what we were talking about in doing in India? Can we put those 4 things which is done in India for the world? Can we reach that level? And those 4 things are basically design, develop, research, and global strategies. Because we have the talent, we have the numbers. It is only the question of channelizing those talents into these 4 different spheres to tap on the potential. And the last one is on the infrastructure. That we have to catch up with the infrastructure, because whatever said and done, we also need to attract global HR talent to come and work in India for these GCCs. And for that, we need to provide an atmosphere which gives them some sort of support for their social life, family life, that they are willing to relocate. Chennai had shown that in the manufacturing sector, that people are willing to relocate and work for the MNCs, staying from Chennai. The same approach has to be followed for the services sector. So these are the three things to do. I will repeat: EODB, ease of doing business, then working on the infrastructure, and the last but not is those four things which we need to do to cultivate talent.
But this point about infrastructure, if you want to have the same kind of lifestyle as you would in India versus another geography, say a developed economy, wouldn't that restrict the GCCs only to the tier 1 cities? Because that's perhaps the closest in terms of urbanization we would have compared to a developed city. And would that in any way limit the, us capitalizing on the potential or opportunity? If anyone want to come in on this point.
So we are surely seeing a lot of growth in tier 2 and tier 3, and I think government is taking a lot of action, right? If you look at Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, everyone's thinking about the next tier of cities, also basically from an infrastructure perspective. The unlock is usually how do we attract middle management and senior management, because most of our tier 2 cities also have very good infrastructure colleges to attract the junior levels. And like he was mentioning, the critical piece is, will the middle management, senior management move? And I think that's where the growth will come from. I think if we are expecting tier 1 to be the only place where we will see the doubling of these centers between now and 2030, our infrastructure will not take the load.
But I think I'd like to add, I think for anybody coming brand new, and I want to kind of differentiate the GCCs into probably 3 boxes, right? Somebody who's been there for a very long time, 20 plus years. There's a maturity there. There's a brand recall there. There is already an established brand attractiveness there, right? They would very easily move into a tier 2. And that, setting that up and then probably contributing to the economy of a tier 2 is very easy. To somebody who's setting up a brand new GCC, entering the Indian market, competing with the talent war that we have in all the major cities, they would be a little reluctant to go into tier 2, whilst there are incentives, simply because the recall is not there. And for us to even put tier 2 probably out there, we also need the connectivity. I mean, we all know when we have some of these conversations, they're like, okay, what is the airport connectivity? When I'm thinking of setting up a GCC, right? So for us, that connectivity is also important. I think tier 2 to me is aspirational, and it will be probably the second location. Will tier 2 be the first location, primary location for somebody entering the market? I don't think so.
Look, maybe I just want to add over here. I was born in a tier 2 city, and I started my career in a tier 2 city. Both different, and both of them are tier 1 cities right now, right? Hyderabad and Bangalore. I think we need to look at GCC in totality with the ecosystem of service providers, with the ecosystem of manufacturing facilities, with the ecosystem of educational institutions. And if you just look at how Bangalore or Hyderabad took off, right? It started with, in the 80s, a lot of the government establishments being there. So the BHEL, BEL, HAL, DRDO, manufacturing facilities, they were there. That attracted a diverse talent base. Those talent bases got into schools and colleges, which forced the quality of that schools and colleges to become better. Those children went into what is called startups, but then it was Infosys and Wipros and the TCSs were startups at that time. Those went into, there was a mobility of resources into US, and familiarity with these locations. And then there was an outsourcing wave, and then it kind of went into a GCC wave, right? So to look at policy just in the context of what kind of SOPs can be given to that sector, in the absence of looking at the entirety of it, it's going to be important. So for example, something that I saw in Tamil Nadu, there's a company that has a manufacturing plant here, and subsidies are linked to jobs creation, in investment brought in, or for example export revenues and things like that. And what the government did was, I think is the future, right? So they combined the SOPs for manufacturing plant with the SOPs that will be applicable for GCCs. So the employment creation in the GCC was clubbed with the manufacturing facilities investment subsidies. So what that means is that, India is a vast country. It's a vast market by itself. So companies can look at it as a place where it can sell its products, can innovate its products, can do the manufacturing, can do the services for the world, can do the supply hubs, regional export hubs. The entirety has to be looked at. And then who knows, every company that is coming into India should be looking at India, and we are seeing that in the pharma space also. We're seeing companies considering India for first to sell, and then to make, and then to get supply chains, and then to innovate. So the entirety of it, and the governments, and the state governments, and the central governments, I see this in this thinking happening more and more, and it's extremely encouraging because we're looking at India's story rather than only a GCC story or a startup story or a service provider story or a manufacturing story. The integrated solution to a stakeholder like Tanuj in London would make more sense. And I think something like Tamil Nadu, a state like Tamil Nadu is doing it.
But who is India competing with when it comes to getting GCCs here? There is Mexico, there is Poland, there is Vietnam. So many of these geographies are also emerging. So what are your thoughts on that?
See, I see them as, I see this as a node, in a wide network. It is not, India will remain the anchor node because it's the supply chain of digital talent at scale. But there will be, horses for courses locations like Vietnam. There was a surge of work being moved into Poland. There's Romania, there's Czechoslovakia, and that is servicing a particular geographical risk diversion strategy in Europe. Similarly, you have Vietnam and things like that, and it's all, again, the companies thinking about Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia are also having market entry strategies in those geographies. So I don't see them as competitors. I see them as essential nodes to diversify risk, for example, or to get access to specialized talent. So, Portugal, for example, has got a national AI skill development program. And maybe the AI skills over there would be relevant to an organization that needs those particular niche skills in the future, right? So India remains the anchor node, and there could be satellite nodes across
maybe a
geographies.
Slightly contradictory view here. I think that's the current state, for sure. I don't think there's any market which has the scale that we can provide. But I think the competition is real. If you take a China for AI, or if you take Mexico for technology, there is skill getting built at very consciously. The government is playing a significant role in skilling, in scaling, making GCC setups a lot more easier. And I think as we celebrate on our laurels of we've done extremely well, we do have a disproportionate market share of GCCs, and the growth is significant. The geopolitics has also in the last couple of years helped us because Eastern Europe has been challenging to grow in. I think there are good pockets. We track about 30 markets globally across LATAM, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe. And there are pockets which are surely coming up. For ER&D, Vietnam is great. There's a lot of high quality capability coming there. We've had the scale, which no other country has. We have adaptability. And I think what is playing to our benefit right now, at least when we look at AI adoption, India, Mexico, and US usually always top the list. But I don't think this is a time to step back, right? This is the time to
double down.
Yeah, double down, lean in on the positive.
Salisha, do you want to come in? Because there's always the other risk about over-dependence on one geography. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. The one thing that COVID learned us is to build resilience, supply chain diversity. So just purely by that logic, and then so many other geographies are also have inherent talents and skills. So when you have these boardroom conversations with enterprises about where the GCC should come in what form, partnership, should they build, should they partner, or even perhaps build a satellite node somewhere else. Take us through these boardroom conversations on this.
No, absolutely. I think, contingency is something that comes up often. But I think, India is a large country. For example, there is enough contingency between setting up a GCC in NCR to setting up a GCC in Chennai, right? Both the locations could provide sufficient contingency, probably better than what you get between, I'll say UK and France. We are much farther, right? So I think the geographical advantage is there. And there is also a nuanced skill set available in different cities, even in India, right? So depending upon the nature of the work, the kind of, GCC being set up, I feel we have enough diversity geographically, economically, even, from a geopolitical kind of a situation. So that is not coming up. However, there is a preference to do nearshore. And that's where locations like Mexico or Eastern Europe do come in for more nearshore. I think what is increasingly also coming up as a trend in the boardroom conversations is the availability of talent with that domain. Right, we spoke about pharma, say in Hyderabad, life sciences. We speak about engineering talent in Bangalore. We talk about deep manufacturing talent here in Chennai. I think that is also a very big part of the location where board is looking at the different locations. So I don't see the concentration risk yet. I think the fact is talent is here, and there is a proven track record here. Right? I think that is something we can boast of, but I think as she said, we can't sit back on the laurels, but we need to double down. So that is not a conversation, but it's about how do we still manage the risk while coming into this country? How do we land so that we attract the talent, and what is the niche area that we want to play with? I think those are some of the boardroom conversations.
Sir, you want to, when we look ahead to 2030 and beyond, do you think the availability of talent in India could be a constraint? So far, it's played to our advantage. India has one of the highest, the most number of engineers in the world, STEM graduates. But for the kind of demand that we're talking about to sustain even beyond 2030, do you think talent could be a constraint?
I don't think number-wise that will be a constraint. It is the question of the technology will change so fast, and the requirement of industry will be changing so fast. What will matter is that how nimble we are in changing our curriculum and designing courses which are actually needed by industries. So those states who have taken lead in doing that and aligning their curriculum and the training program in line with the industrial need, designed by industry, will do better in spotting talent. Coming back, just give me 1 minute on your last question, that why India? Because you asked about the
global competitors.
So two things I will say, that none of these competitors which you mentioned, particularly because a lot of people talk about Poland and Vietnam earlier, they used to talk about Philippines. They don't provide that kind of internal market. So a 4% economy in the global pie, delivering 16 to 18%, which is likely to go up of the delta of the incremental growth in the global GDP, certainly has a major firepower in that. How will we cultivate that? That is the question. And second thing is, all these GCC will depend on data. And as we talk, we understand that 40% of the global data which is available for these research or analysis is generated in India, whereas only maybe 2.5 to 3% of the data centers are located in India. I am talking about those who are working like data factory. So we have to take a leapfrog in that, club it with GCC model to ask them to start using the data factories in India, create demand for data factories in India. That will remove the latency part of it. And often you hear this phrase that data is the new crude. But I can tell you the difference, that we never had the crude, but we had the processing power, and we became the net exporting country. The reverse is happening presently, which is we have the crude, that is data. We have to develop that processing capacity to start doing the value addition and retain that value in India. So GCCs clubbed with data center is the second advantage which India can work on to beat other competitors in that field.
Well said. Rohan, just to get back to that point about potential challenges, Sir doesn't think the talent could be a constraint going ahead. We'll have enough inherent latent talent to meet the demand that's there. What about, regulatory risk, right? I mean, there is this Hire Act, which has been introduced in the Senate right now. We don't know if it's going to be passed, if it'll be watered down, but that is proposing a 25% outsourcing tax. If that passes, will that not hit GCCs? Have you had any conversations on that?
So, in my conversations with my clients, I think they're not taking it very seriously because it's still a long way, in terms of passing and all that. But let's take hypothetically, it happens, right? And we have $65 billion of today revenue, of which take the transfer pricing and all that out, and you have, say, $50 billion of actual cost. The cost is about 3 times to 4 times more. So if we just take this GCC cost and then hit it into their profit and loss accounts in the global corporations, the P ratio globally is 20. So we are looking at $1.5 to $2 trillion of market capitalization, global market capitalization collapsing. And 3 times more is basically the outsourcing. So, the impact, when we don't need to be defensive about the cost arbitrage that India provides, because that cost arbitrage is real in terms of shareholder wealth back in the parent corporations to the extent of at least $1.5 to $2 trillion. And I don't think people are going to mess too much with that. But at the same time, see, we've got to keep an eye on what, regulatory challenges could also come in the form of AI and how and security and things like that. And that we need to keep an eye on because, if, for example, AI takes away a vast portion of the effort involved, then that is a real risk.
So you think the biggest threat is AI?
I do see AI as a trend, not playing today, but maybe in the 2-3 years' time, as cost of AI becoming cheaper, then adoption kind of goes up. And that could become a real risk. I'm not terribly concerned about what's happening on the Hire Act.
Okay.
And that's what my clients tell me too.
And we should not be defensive about India's cost arbitrage.
Not.
We should own it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, just a quick final, 1-second answer. If wave 1 of GCCs was about cost, wave 2 about innovation, what would wave 3 look like? Sresha?
It is definitely AI.
AI.
I think generative, right? Generate value, generative AI. It's the generative business services going forward.
Do you want to give us one word and also one final line to end this conversation about Tamil Nadu's vision, for by 2030?
On the magic word, it's not a word. Innovate to commercialize.
Innovate to commercialize.
And what Tamil Nadu will provide, or for that matter, country will provide for this sector, is AAA rating. We have Standard Chartered is the main organizer and sponsor of this thing. So for any financial sector company will not be happy with a single A rating, and we should aspire for AAA rating, and that is India provides what I say always in any field you take: affordability, accessibility, and availability. So we should not stop at any of the single A's. We should aspire for all 3 A's.
Okay, well said. Thank you very much, Brijendra, Sailaja, Sresha, and Rohan for joining us in this discussion. It was fabulous, very insightful. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next up, we're going to talk about the new face of Indian manufacturing. We've spoken about GCCs. Now let's talk about manufacturing, one that is powered by data and design as much by machinery. We're talking about industrial intelligence, where sensors, AI, automation are not just replacing workers, but empowering them, creating smarter, faster and cleaner industries. Again, to lead this conversation, if I may request Shireen to come back here on the stage, and to join her, Mr. Anand Bhushan, Global Competency Center Leader for Saint-Gobain Group, Mr. Kirti Prakash, Managing Director, Chennai Plant at the Renault Group. Let's extend a warm welcome as we begin this conversation.
Well, we didn't want to let you go without talking about what actually happens in Tamil Nadu also, manufacturing, and so we thought it would be nice to get Kirti and Anand to talk to us about what they're doing and what you believe the road ahead looks like, not just for the state, but for each of your businesses and how you're positioning yourselves for the future. And let me start by asking you, the experience that you've had so far in the state and in the context of this intelligent automation that we're talking about. Smart factories have been around for a while now. GCCs are, of course, the big theme and the big idea. How do you marry the two?
So thank you so much. So I'm from Saint-Gobain, which in French we call Saint-Gobain. So I'm sorry, sometimes I'll get confused. We started Saint-Gobain, I think 25 years back in Chennai. We have world's largest plant in Chennai. In Sheriparambadur, and also the second largest is coming in Chennai. We started our association also with the group, with the GCC in Mumbai. So I'll tell you this, the first part, born in Bihar, studied in Kanpur, working in Mumbai, and now in Tamil Nadu to speak about GCC. You can see the India for India right
Yes,
now, right?
Absolutely, we can, we certainly can.
So biggest advantage what we saw, and that's why we are here, is the capability and intelligent industrial cluster. Some of my industry peers, they had spoken about talent, separately, manufacturing capability separately. I would say the biggest strength of the state is the possibility of creation of the cluster, that is the intelligent cluster. Because we have largest R&D also in Chennai. So it's R&D, is institutions, is manufacturing, and all of these three together is a talent. This is what is giving us the biggest advantage for all of us together.
But what's been the biggest learning over the last 25 years as you worked in different parts of the country and as you're piecing all of this together and looking at the future now and looking at leveraging AI, agentic AI and so on and so forth? How prepared do you feel for that future? And more importantly, what are the kind of strategic bets that you're making in order for you to be ready for the future?
See, Tanuj had spoken about reskilling and upskilling. Okay, so I'll first speak about learning that we had. We started first in Mumbai. We didn't start in Chennai for GCC perspective. When we saw potential here in Chennai around ER&D, we started our GCC of ER&D here, and our enterprise GCC is in Mumbai. The biggest learning we had on spotting the talent for the job, because what dream we have at the Saint-Gobain, that because in the world of, because we are coming from sustainable construction material company, every home in the world has India in it. With this aspiration, the talent is one, and that's where everyone spoke about skill. I connect definitely job with the skill you spoke about. Second, with regards to AI, I'm a practitioner. I started my career as a programmer. I'm still a programmer. I'm not worried about, and nobody should be worried about at this point in time that AI will take the job. No. You also discussed about one of the challenge about the talent shortage. AI actually will address that. So to prepare ourselves, we are doing upskilling at scale. Not only in India, because I'm responsible for also global talents, globally across the world. And if we have aspiration to have India in every house, then definitely we should be touching every point that can give us scale. So we are upskilling at scale. Second, we are also connecting with industry as peers and learn from them. Because see, financial institutions